Thank you so much, Jay, for joining us from San Francisco. Jay is also, by the way, the author of the new book, The Steve Jobs Way, iLeadership for a New Generation. Jay, you worked for Steve Jobs about 6+ years. Give us some background on what made him the juggernaut that he is today.
Well, Steve has a unique position of being really focused on the product. What makes Steve different from most CEOs in the world, also I work for IBM also in my background, is the fact that he's so intense and so passionate about the product. And it's about making a product that makes it easy from a 6-year-old child to an elderly person to use.
Steve, Jay, did Steve have any health issues back when you knew him? How did he handle his personal issues? John was just telling us about how when he spoke with Apple yesterday at his meeting, he was getting emotional.
Oh yeah, Steve is very emotional, and he never had any health issues. He's obviously was a very fit person. He ate very healthy foods, and he never really had any problems. But Steve was a very emotional person. He really has this incredible intensity and passion for what he does.
Jay, it's John Erlichman. We heard from Steve Wozniak, obviously one of the founders of Apple, last night on Bloomberg West, and one of the things he said is that Steve is not driven by the money. Now, you could argue that many people inside Apple are passionate about the company and the products, but without that singular focus on wanting to be #1 in products, is there going to be a change in the thinking down the road?
Well, it's really interesting. I'm a founder of my own company, and I believe that it's an interesting position to be a founder of a company. Think about it. Steve was part of the founding of the company 35 years ago. How many CEOs of a company you can imagine have been there 35 years and have this incredible intensity and passion for building great products? Yeah, that's one thing I would be concerned about. Is Tim Cook's a great guy. He's a great leader. He's learned from Steve. Steve has left a legacy of some great people to operate the company, but they are not founders of the company. That's the part that I would worry about. But in the short term, I believe that the company's in really good hands.
And at the same time, there's such a fascination with Steve Jobs because of the things we don't know about the company. It is massive, and it is a public company, but in many ways private, so protective of its brand. What can you tell us about that secretive nature inside Apple?
Well, Steve is very closed about what he wants to do, and as he learned how to move into the consumer market, he's got to make sure that he keeps a lot of information away from his competitors. And I think that Steve has basically changed the landscape of the computer business. I believe that Hewlett-Packard is a victim of the new direction of where that whole business is going to go.
Jay, this is Scarlet again. A lot of people have pointed out that in the past 5 years, a couple of senior executives at Apple have left the company. I'd like to hear your thoughts on the loyalty among the senior staff at Apple. Is there going to be more people leaving now that Steve is not the CEO?
I don't think so. I think that Apple is in good shape. I think that the loyalty basically is about what a great products they built. I mean, it's amazing when Steve steps on stage or Tim Cook steps on stage. They're talking about the product. That's the loyalty to the company, is what incredibly great products they're producing, and they're ahead of the market. That's the loyalty that comes from Apple.
How will history judge Steve Jobs as the leader of Apple?
Well, I think he's not only the leader of Apple. Steve has set a new direction for leadership. It's about being totally passionate about what you do. It's about being totally committed to the products you make, and it's something that the rest of the world has to follow. I believe that's a legacy that will never be matched. I mean, it's unbelievable. When I met Steve, he's only 27 years old, and I'm about 12 years older than he is, and I couldn't believe this young guy had this insight and vision to the future of products.
Jay, very quickly, I want to ask you, how is the competition going to react to this? Most of the competitors haven't had a chance to breathe, given Apple's dominance. Will they see this as an opportunity?
I don't believe so. I think if you look at the Apple products, then certainly this isn't going to change their products. It's not going to change the future direction of their development. The Apple, what I call the retail juggernaut of Apple, is not going to change, and it's going to be, they're going to still have to contend with it. Tim and the other people that he's assembled as the leaders of the company aren't going to change it. So they're going to have to deal with it.
All right. Thank you so much, Jay Elliot, for your thoughts and sharing us your perspective on Steve Jobs and his resignation from Apple as CEO.